Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will read a story about a woman who was being begged by her former friend to let him and his family to live in her house after he called her a bad person for his children because she is child-free. This is a two-part story, so be sure to like and subscribe for part 2. Let us begin. A former friend of mine, Liam, not his real name, reached out after nearly 3 years of silence. He said he was dealing with an urgent home repair situation and needed a place for himself, his wife, and their 3 kids to stay while it was resolved. This is the same person who, during a difficult period in my life, told me he couldn't continue being my friend because my decision to be child-free made me a bad influence on his family. Here's some context. The friendship ended because I was going through an incredibly tough time. My father passed away, which was just one of several awful events that happened within a few months. I needed support, but instead, Liam dismissed me, claiming that my choice to remain child-free was inappropriate for their family dynamic. Back then, he had a wife and 2 kids, and they decided I wasn't worth associating with, compared to the other, more suitable friends they had. Liam and I had been friends since graduate school. We had spent over a decade enjoying activities like rock climbing and vacationing with mutual friends at lake houses and ski lodges. Losing that bond hurt deeply, especially because I had been there for him during his mother's battle with cancer and supported him at her funeral. For the past 3 years, we hadn't spoken or texted. I figured it was just another case of people becoming unrecognizable when they start families. It's like some folks automatically adopt a rigid, traditional mindset that sees anyone not pursuing the white picket fence lifestyle as suspicious. Then, out of nowhere, I get a text from Liam. I had never blocked or deleted his number, so his name still appeared on my phone. He asked if his family could stay with me because their water heater broke, claiming it was an emergency. He emphasized that I live nearby and that it would be a huge favor, and he'd owe me one. That message brought up a flood of emotions. Apparently, since declaring me a bad influence, he and his wife had a 3rd child during the pandemic. My immediate thought was, why would he ask me of all people? I responded by asking him the same question. His explanation? He said he had run out of options and that no one else had the space to accommodate his family, especially with their 5-month-old baby. I asked why he couldn't just book a hotel. Liam claimed it was too expensive, citing the medical debt they'd accrued after their youngest had spent time in the NICU. I told him that was unfortunate, but still asked why he thought I was the right person to ask. He mentioned hearing about me offering emergency housing to someone last year and assumed I'd be just as generous with him. I immediately realized he was talking about a situation I'd handled privately. Liam revealed he'd seen it shared on Facebook by the people I'd helped. Quick aside, about a year ago, my close college friend Kate, who has lupus, contracted COVID despite being extremely cautious. This was before vaccines were available to vulnerable groups. Kate, who's in her mid-30s and otherwise healthy, she's a marathon runner, ended up in the ICU. Complicating matters, she was pregnant at the time. Her husband had to make a devastating choice to prioritize saving her life over the pregnancy. Thankfully, he made the right call and approved life-saving care for Kate. Kate's mother, however, was a nightmare. She argued that Kate should have died alongside her baby and even tried to bring a priest to administer last rites while Kate was in a coma. This created a huge family rift. Kate's brother and his wife, who had been staying with her mother, couldn't tolerate the situation and needed immediate accommodations to be near the hospital. Since I had an extra room and lived close by, I let them stay for 2 days until they found a long-term hotel. Thankfully, Kate survived, and she has since gone no contact with her mother. She remembers hearing about the priest trying to intervene, even while unconscious. Her brother and sister-in-law were incredibly grateful for my help and expressed their gratitude both privately and publicly, though I wasn't aware they had posted about it on social media. Back to Liam. He saw that post and took it as proof that I'd welcome his family with open arms. I was furious. He had the audacity to guilt-trip me into opening my home after cutting me off and insulting my life choices. He once called me a bad influence, but now, when it suited him, I was suddenly acceptable without so much as an apology for how he treated me 3 years ago. I told him that being child-free meant I didn't want kids in my house, especially not for an extended period. If I did, I wouldn't have chosen to be child-free in the first place. I wasn't about to disrupt my life and my 2 cats just to host his family. He accused me of being selfish and insisted I should consider his children, pointing out that they had no hot water at home. I told him that was his problem, and he could use a credit card or ask family members for help with a hotel stay. Liam doubled down, mentioning their medical debt again and claiming it would only be for a few days. I told him his timeline sounded suspicious. Issues like a broken water heater are usually fixed quickly. I also knew that in our state, letting someone stay for 7 days could lead to them claiming tenant rights. I wasn't about to risk having them overstay their welcome. He lashed out, threatening to smear my name on social media and tell everyone that I refused to help a family in need. I told him to do whatever he wanted, reminding him that I don't use Facebook and couldn't care less what the Karens of the internet thought about me. I also pointed out that if he tried spreading this among my actual friends, they'd see through him immediately. To drive my point home, I let him know I'd saved all his texts as evidence of his manipulative behavior. I told him he used to be a good guy, and I genuinely felt sorry for how his life had turned out. However, he was a toxic presence, and I couldn't have someone like him in my life. I ended by saying, "I'm sure you'll understand since you once told me the exact same thing." That was the last thing I said before blocking him. I'm bracing myself for any flying monkeys who might try to guilt me into helping him, but I'm prepared to shut them down. I've already spoken to my 2 best friends about the situation, and they were as shocked as I was at Liam's entitlement. They also found it suspicious that he was so adamant about staying at my place rather than exploring other options like a hotel. I feel confident that I made the right decision, even though it dredged up some painful memories. It hurts to think about the kind person Liam used to be, but with time, I've realized his character wasn't what I thought it was. And that's the end of part 1. What do you think of the story so far? Let me know in the comment. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will continue our story of a woman who was being begged by her former friend to let him and his family to live in her house after he called her a bad person for his children because she is child-free. In case you missed part 1, I recommend you to hear it first in Out channel for better understanding. Let us continue our story. Welcome back. I recommend you to have a pot of hot tea next to you because this is going to be long. Well, my guts were right after all. A broken water heater making a family of 5 need alternative housing was fishy, especially since Liam doesn't even have a water heater. It was all a lie. So here's the deal. Liam sold his house 6 months ago, and he and his wife Eliza have been trying to buy a bigger home ever since. They're right now, as I type this, already in a hotel with their kids. They have plenty of hot water. I can imagine all of you nodding your heads up and down saying, yep. I know you guys wanted an update because the water heater excuse sounded like BS, so here it is. Seriously, get yourself some tea. My sister is in another time zone and has a few hours on me. She apparently has been working on finding out about Liam. Her husband used to moonlight as a PI in grad school, and she has a preternatural ability to find details about people. She's a little creep in a good way. She also has a social media presence where I do not. I gave her Liam's full real name and things I knew about him, like an address I had for him and the names of his wife and the 2 kids I know, and she went to town. She told me that his home went on the market about 6 months ago and sold pretty quickly for a ton more than what it was bought for years ago. It's a seller's market, and it was a huge sale. I was like, oh, that's interesting. She then went on to say that she looked around in the city and surrounding towns and couldn't find him buying any other property. It looked like his house sold for a lot of money, but that was it. So I then texted my two friends from yesterday. I told them what my sister found, that it looks like Liam sold his house and doesn't actually have a water heater problem because he doesn't have a water heater. My friends were like, "What the f—" So one of the two friends, Alison, got in touch with my sister and they went on a social media deep dive. My sister was very worried I was being conned. Alison was a grad school mate along with me and Liam 10 plus years ago. She was never super close with him and he wasn't on her radar, but she was among his Facebook friends. I guess thanks goes out to the people of Facebook for friending literally everybody they slightly know. At about the same time, I heard back from Kate's brother and sister-in-law, who stayed with me back when Kate was in the hospital. It was Kate's sister-in-law, Laura, who posted about being thankful for my generosity on Facebook. She confirmed she had posted a couple of pictures. They were of my cat and one of my big plants because she loved them. The thing was that you could extrapolate things about the home. Tidy and large kitchen, nice pantry. This will be relevant. I filled her in about what was going on and she was mortified that she might have been partly at fault for why Liam wanted to get into my house. She took down the post, untagging my name, and showed me a screen capture verifying she did so and asked if she could help with anything else. I told her my sister was apparently doing a deep dive and maybe could use help. I put Laura in contact with my sister, and Laura apparently also got in contact with Alison. Late in the morning, I was asked by Alison for screen grabs of the precise point in the text conversation, where Liam says his emergency is about the water heater, and it's why he needs me to do him a favour and take in his family and kids for a few days. I gave it to her, and it was radio silence for most of the day. I thought, I wonder what is going on. So in the early evening, I get a lot more of the story. I got texts from my sister, Alison, and Laura. I'm going to try and bullet point it. It's a bit circuitous. Liam and Eliza sold their house 6 months ago, expecting to buy a bigger one. But no matter how much they bid, they couldn't secure a new place. They had a ton of equity in the old house, but they wouldn't adjust their expectations or increase their budget. They stayed with friends, but after overstaying their welcome, they moved to a hotel. The kids were loud and they were stressed, yet they refused to look for cheaper housing like an apartment. They didn't want to rent because it didn't seem like a good investment to them. Slight segue, Alison goes back to Eliza's posts and finds a situation in which she and a gaggle of her friends are talking not so nicely about me. It's a situation that happened at the start of the pandemic. It was back when people freaked out and started buying out all the toilet paper. People also bought a lot of food before it could be restocked because of panic buying. A person I used to go to grad school with and was friends with got in touch with me to ask how I was holding up. I thought she was contacting me to offer support and be nice. Her motivation was to get me to give her my food. I've had a chest freezer and a well-stocked pantry for a long time. Having a working pantry is something that got passed to me from my grandma, who survived World War II. My mum did it, and now I do it too. Well, this friend, who was seemingly sweet to me, knows I have a decent amount of food. She said she needs me to give her some of my food because I don't have any kids to feed. She said her kid is a picky eater, and I probably have a bunch of frozen chicken to spare. I was impressed by the audacity and told her that if she was desperate for food, there's a food bank to go to. I'm not going to just give her my food because her son is picky and only eats her homemade chicken nuggets. It's not a food shortage, it's panic buying. If she just gets to the grocery store early in the morning midweek, when they typically restock, she'll easily get chicken. She told me I was selfish. Apparently, she took this to social media to talk behind my back with others who were spouses of grad school friends. Now back to Eliza's posts. Eliza supports the woman who tried to get me to give her my frozen chicken. Eliza also considers me selfish for not helping a mother out. She says it's really weird for me to keep so much food around when it's only me and that I obviously have problems. When Laura posted about my generosity in letting them stay a couple of days before they found a long-term hotel situation while Kate was hospitalized, there were some comments made by Eliza about how nice it was for me to do that, sweet as can be, and that my home looked amazing. Then there's a weird Eliza post 2 days ago that sounds like her family has found a place that's so cute, and her kids will be able to get out of the hotel situation. She says it has a great kitchen for her kids. Cue Liam texting me yesterday, asking me after no contact for 3 years that he has a broken water heater and needs me to take in his family for a few days while it gets fixed. Obviously, you can guess what happened. I decided to send this to him. Hey Liam, so I found out you were lying about the water heater. You don't even have a water heater. You're living in a hotel along with sitting on a huge pile of cash from selling your old home. I think it's really crappy of you for lying to me and trying to get into my home to leech off me, especially because you destroyed our friendship when you called me a bad influence on your family. I didn't tell you back then, but I'm telling you now that you are trash. Your mom would be ashamed of you. I see it's all projection because you are the bad influence, not only in my life, but in the lives of others. If you really believed I was a bad influence, you never would have tried to get your family into my home this week. But if you still think I'm some sort of bad influence, then you won't have to worry about me helping you out or granting any sort of favor in the future. I'm going to keep my bad influence far away from your family. Oh, and Shelley sounds like she's become a real treat. The last thing I will do for you, because I'm not a monster, is to say that you need to do your duty as a husband and father, and pay to get a stable apartment for your family. Stop playing these freeloader games. Here's a link to our local Craigslist housing page. I'm sure you'll find something. Oh, and hope to see you at the next non-Zoom alumni event. I'm sure it'll be great to catch up in person. He wasn't fooling me this time and never again. I don't care what he and his wife will post in Facebook, but with me sharing this story now, you can probably know who is the truthful one. And that's the end of this story. Do you want to say anything to the writer? Let me know in the comments.